Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. It's a new week. We've got a new manager. There's lots to get into, so let's get into these headlines. So the manager search is over, and as predicted in last week's pod, it is Valérien Ismae who takes the reins. Rovers show character to snatch a point at home to Norwich. Injured players return to the squad, and now the lads face Eustace away at Derby. Mark, it's a big one.
Well, it's a very big one. I think the sales of inflatable snakes, I believe, have gone up 4,000% in the Blackburn area on Amazon. I don't know why, but yeah.
Yeah, we will get into this Derby game, but it does have a feeling this week of it's going to be an important fixture for us. And especially coming off the back of this Norwich game where the performance wasn't exactly where we wanted it to be. So I'm hoping that we manage to turn it around a little bit with this performance and that we go into the Derby game a lot more solid and we turn them over, because there's a lot of predictions at the moment that people are saying it'd be just typical of Derby to go and turn us over now after their run of form. But we'll get into that one. Let's get into the Norwich game first. Before I play the audio reaction, what was it like when Ismae came onto the pitch?
It was decent, to be fair. I was a little bit worried about it in some ways because I'd looked at social media Friday night, Saturday morning-ish, and some of the reaction to our post about would it be Ismae, would it be Wagner, a lot of it was either Wagner or none. And I got a little bit worried that it was about 80% of people were not delighted with the appointment. But we know social media is not quite representative of everybody. And when it got into the ground, to be fair, everyone got behind him, got behind the team. When you were chatting to people were pretty much on the same hymn sheet that, do you know what? He knows the league. He's here now. I think he's starting from a clean slate, whereas some managers come in and you think, oh, that's a really good appointment, or some you think that's not. I think he's coming very neutral and people are waiting to be entertained with Valérien. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's very hard when you're in the Championship and you're not throwing money around. It's very difficult to really make appointments that everyone's going to be super excited about. But it does feel like it's an appointment that most people are kind of on board with. And, I think everyone just was glad to move on now. It seemed like a bit of a relief that we could move on and get on to the football and hopefully see some results. And obviously it did start at Norwich. Let's play the audio reaction first, and then we'll get into the game itself.
Not sure where to start with that one. That was a roller coaster of emotions. I just tweeted out saying someone called the police because we absolutely stole that. I thought that was massively scrappy, sloppy football throughout from us. I thought there was times where we looked like we could break into looking, like we usually do, which is a good footballing side. But it looked really agitated, quick, giving the ball away. And let's be honest, we should have been down to 9 men. Hyam, I don't know what was going through his head doing what he did. And Dennis, I think if we have VAR, we're losing Dennis a bit earlier. But then the ref just lost his head in the last few minutes there. I thought Norwich their goal was decent and they probably deserved to take the lead, but we should have had a penalty. I don't think Dennis should have been sent off after getting away with what he did get away with. A lot to unpack with that one, but I will take a point. I just think that when people watch us, they think, how the hell are you in these playoffs? But I'll take it and we move on.
Just seeing that you said you want to call the police to report a robbery, Mike. I think you might be on the right lines. It was stuck a bit between two styles at certain times. I thought it was a bit of an iffy one. There was sometimes we were pressing in isolation, not enough. But for me, I think people forget how good a team Norwich are. You've got, when I went to their place, Borja Saiz and Sargent are two of the best players in the league. And the movement from them, they were just always the back four were just walking pace, waiting for us to try and press them. And then they'd pick us off a little bit. And it was think their movement's very, very good, and we couldn't really cope with it. And I thought they should be higher than they are, if I'm being honest. But it'd be interesting to see some of these refereeing decisions back. Apparently, Iam should have gone off anyway, but it felt like the referee should have had one of their squad numbers. Anyway, they're the kind of points that get you into the playoffs, my friend. See you tomorrow.
So that is the initial reaction we did just a few minutes after the game. Now you've had a chance to watch it back a bit more, be it highlights and stuff that's been shared. Has your opinion changed about the general game?
Not massively. No, I've watched the 15-minute highlights on Sky where you get a pretty good flavour of it. And obviously I get to see things in different angles and slow them down a bit. I still maintain that I think Norwich are a really good team. Not a good team. I think they've got some really good individuals that will get in any teams in the league. And I think when you could have a new manager bounce, but that generally comes when you are struggling, and it's very much an emotion-based reaction. It's very difficult for the manager and very difficult for the players in this situation, in as much as he's coming in and thinking, well, I've got my own style, but I don't want to tread on toes. The players will be looking at him thinking, well, don't change too much because it's working. And if he dares to do something, in the back of their mind, they're going to be thinking, well, that's not the way we normally do it. And it looked a bit like that in the team and in the way we set up. I think, generally speaking, previous to Ismae, so David Lowe's been doing opposition scouting, looking at the way they build up, looking at the way they press and these kind of things. And then Eustace and his team would then work on that on the training ground. Obviously, Ismail's come in. Was it Tuesday? It was announced. Wednesday, the general have a day off. I think they came in this week. So Thursday, they're working on patterns of play. But how much input has he had? He's trying to get to know the players. He's leaning on the coaches. I think the more I look at it, Mike, I think it's a good result against Norwich. Forget home or away. It's a good result against Norwich. Anyway, I think you take a point. Then when you look at, we've had a new manager without a full week, I would take a point in that situation alone. You go down to 10 men, I'd take a point in that situation. Concede late on, I'd definitely take a point. So when you add all four of those things into the mix, I'm very happy to get that one out of the way, relatively unscathed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you've put it that way, because we've said plenty of times, that we try and focus on the football, and we have the reason we do these little audios is we like to really grasp, how we felt right after the game. But then I like to think we're a couple of sensible fans. People may disagree with us, but then we like to step back, after the game and actually break things down and think exactly like you've just articulated there. It's a new manager coming into a really weird situation. It's very rare that this has happened to us. Normally the manager's been sacked or left rather than being poached, which feels like it's been done this time. So I completely agree with that. I think the thing is, for me, is I came away, I just felt like they weren't doing the simple things right. They were being very sloppy. I know that I've got frustrated with the likes of Dolan and Gay, but it was like all of them just seemed to be, giving the ball away cheaply, running out of play. The simple things weren't being done right. But that was my initial thing coming away. I was delighted that we got a result. And the one thing that highlighted to me was we cried out over the last couple of years that we've been doing videos and podcasts and stuff. We've been saying that this team needs experience. We did podcasts on stats about how our average age was low. We didn't have much experience around the team from the Championship and so on. And what's really interesting now is we've got these players. We've got the Weimanns, we've had the Danny Barts, even Forshaw and, Travis as well, Ribeiro at left back. These are players now that have experience in the Championship. Do you feel like how I feel, which is this is actually really helping us pick up these random points? Rovers over the last 3 or 4 years would have just probably rolled over and lost this 2-3-0 by the end of it. But we kept at it. We knew that we was making mistakes, but we just kept going, pluck in, and then we get that equaliser. Do you think it is the experience that's playing a big part?
100%. I think there's just that little bit of know-how. In Weimann, there is, I'd said at the beginning of the season that I think he will score and turn up in some big moments. I don't think he's been banging form recently, but he's still, I mean, he could have had 2 goals, couldn't he? 2 were very similar. Another one that he was through on goal. I just think that the players have got us through the last few weeks as well. It feels a little bit like the stepdad's come into the picture and then he's been asked to take charge of the kids for the first time. And when that's kind of happening, I was watching the game and I'm thinking, do you know what? It's not actually a bad thing that we've not started like a house on fire. I think if you start like a house on fire and we're kind of just ticking over the way that we were doing it anyway, he's in a tricky position next week again. What they kind of needed was a performance that was a bit mixed. And at 60 minutes, he makes a subs and either that makes the impact or what happened. And they've had a real shared experience that gives him a little bit of room as well to say, everything's not quite as rosy as we think it is it? I know we are where we are in the league, but it's not perfect. Let's not pretend it is. I think this, and this will help us. And this did help us as we move into the game. I thought that negatives-wise, if you like, I thought there was players caught between styles. So there was definitely an element of some of the forward line were asked to press a bit more, but they were doing it in isolation. There was no clear team press, and that's so dangerous. Norwich want you to do that. We weren't quite as disciplined in our ability to sit off. So by that, I mean, Norwich were goading us. It was boring as hell. And they were walking pace, frustrating you and really sort of going, come and get the ball off us. And when they're doing that, they clearly are setting traps for you to fall into. And I thought we did a couple of times. I think that looking forward beyond this, I think Cantwell's going to struggle to fit into Ismail's team. I do. I thought that Cogbo, I wanted a bit more from him. It's not a pop at him, but I did want a bit more. I thought he struggled at times.
He showed his lack of experience in this league, didn't he?
He did. He didn't quite know where to be. And just parking the goal for a second, I don't know what's happened to Andi Weimann in the last couple of weeks because all the things that, I mean, he's not the most mobile, but actually the last couple of weeks, his touch has been appalling. And when he went through on goal, I had you in my head when you're going, oh, Mark will be saying here, who would you want in front of goal? And his first touch was awful. And that's not Weimann at all. But then he pops up with a goal. And that is what he brings ahead of.
And that's the experience, isn't it?
He just gets in those positions, doesn't he? And I would always want him on the pitch when you're chasing a game. I don't think he's going to start chasing a game in terms of pressing, but he's a little bit like JRC sometimes, like Rhodes used to be, like that. Something seems to happen when they're on the pitch. The ball seems to fall to them. And the reason I include JRC is because he comes off the bench when you're chasing a game and he's at the centre of it, whether it's Leeds, he's at the back post, whether it's Plymouth, he's dinking a crossing. He also does something like that. But Weimann's just got that know-how. And I think going back to your original point, that's the kind of player that gets you over the line. And that's why this season feels a bit different. I think there's something in us that keeps us ticking over in moments where otherwise we would never have got anything out of this game.
No, and Ismae now, he's got the gift of players coming back from injury. So it's like he's got some new signs. I mean, Carter starting was a boost for everyone. And the fact he was bursting forward into the area multiple times, I was like, mate, calm it down. You know, we don't want you injured again. But he plays the full 90 minutes. He gets man of the match from the sponsors, which was fantastic. And then you've got Ohashi coming back off the bench. You've got Tronstad there as well. It's like, you know, it's like we've got this whole new team coming back, and now we've got this week of him, you know, hopefully training them to a little bit more of the style, and then, you know, international breaks coming up, which is going to be vital for him to really put a stamp on things of how he wants to play. But I think the experience of the team is really what got us that point. I think the fact that we just kept plugging away, we just got the ball out to Ribeiro, who just dinked it in. It seemed like a very casual goal to score. It was like the kind of goal you'd score with your mates down the park. Like, I'll just knock it to him, he'll knock it in. I'll just edit. It just seemed a very strong, and I love that. I love the fact it was a straightforward goal. I mean, it came out of nowhere because I felt like the game was gone. I felt like it was done. We'll get onto the referee's decision shortly, but we should have had a penalty. But I was shocked that we equalised because I've still got it in my head that we're Rovers of old, and when we go 1-0 down, it's coming into the dying minutes and we're down to 10 men, that's it. But maybe this is something new. So let's talk about that starting lineup then. We did have Carter back. Was there anything there that you was looking at and you thought this is going to be a game changer for us?
I was very, very intrigued to see Carbo. I was glad Cantwell was back in the fold. I was a bit disappointed for Buckling. I was a bit concerned. Oh my God, why is he not even in the squad? Has something happened? Is he? But then it turns out he's managed to get himself concussion in training. I think that made Tronstad's return to the bench even more important for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the team now, and Forshaw started, and not a lot of people were happy with that. But you can start to see some like creativity as well with Garpo on the left. I think there's something there. I know that he didn't have his best game, but I think he can create. It looks like Ribeiro 100%. Can create as well. I wasn't expecting him to be the player he is. Then you've got Britton on the right, and now we've got Carter bounding through as well. Is this something that we can build on now, having Carter running through like a gazelle?
Well, I remember him doing it against Derby, and he did a Cruyff turn, didn't he, and sat half of their team down. I think a lot of Hayden Carter. I think he would have struggled to get back in the team had Danny Bart been fit, but it's kind of fallen for him, hasn't it? And he seems to be taking his chance. So, yeah. I think the signs are looking good, but there's some underlying things that we can't quite ignore where it's just not quite, something's not quite genuine in that first game. That's why, as we've talked about and alluded to, and I know we'll go on to it more, but the Derby game's massive for me in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't happy with the performance of this. I mean, I was absolutely delighted to get the 1-1. I thought we was far too sloppy at the back. I thought Dolan was doing the stuff that frustrates me. Gaye, let's talk about Gaye. He's playing with confidence. You can tell he's got confidence, but it seemed to me like he was trying to do too much. He was actually getting in the way of other players. Like there was times the ball was coming in, and whether he got a call or not, it's like I'm going for this no matter what, whether I should or shouldn't. And he was taking the ball off other people. He seemed to be, under people's feet. I don't think Cantwell had a fantastic game. Like you say, Garpo didn't have a fantastic game. So there was a hell of a lot to work on. But we were lucky not to be down to 10 men when Hyam did what he did. What was your opinion of that? Because I'm seeing mixed reviews, and I know what mine is. What's yours?
I saw it in the ground, and you could just see their players going bonkers. You couldn't really see anything that had happened. Obviously, he saw gunned down, but he didn't look like he was extremely, hurt. So you kind of thought it's a bit odd. And then you saw their bench all rush and sit down, look at the iPad, and then go bonkers. So you knew something had happened. And then it started filtering through on my phone. I've seen it back. It's very unlike Dom Hyam, isn't it? Now, I know that they played together at Scotland, I think, so whether something's happened there. But I don't actually think there was malice in it. I think he was trying to stop the game. And I think he was probably trying to push him back or whatever. But he ends up catching him, doesn't he, with his forearm, his elbow, almost his wrist. Let's be honest, if VAR was there, he'd have been off. And
he's gone.
He may do well to avoid a retrospective ban, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he will get one. There's a few people that have actually called it out, saying that they want it to happen, which has caused a bit of backlash between fans, because some high-profile fans have said that they don't want that and they want him to get banned. I don't know if you've seen that on social media. Yeah, I don't want to mention the person's name, but they put it out and they got pelters for it. But yeah, I mean, I know it's out of Dom Hyam's character to do that. It didn't look like he was going for his face. It looked like he was maybe trying to just, like you say, slow him down, push him,
block him across.
But it was not going to hold up in court. At the end of the day, your forearm smashed him into his jawline, neck area. It is a red card and it is violent play, and he shouldn't have done it. So I think we was lucky there. Talking about ref decisions later on, Dennis then gets his yellow card. I think if VAR's in that, I think that's an instant red as well. I've seen them given. What's your opinion on that one?
Yeah, in the ground, it was one of them where someone's full speed running at somebody, catches them. He was over Chriseni, sort of trying to make sure he was all right. I think it felt like that was one that would have gone if it was potentially even the other way around, dare I say it. But yeah, it felt a yellow and a half.
Yeah, it was a nasty one. I mean, I don't like I said, I don't think Hyams was in intent to actually get him in the face, but he did, which means yes, it's a red card. And I don't think Dennis meant to get him on the ankle, but he did, which means it's a red card. And whether we like the laws or not, they are the laws. And I think we got away with both of them. And I thought to myself, do you know what? Something's going to, there's something's going to happen here. We're getting a bit of luck. We're being scrappy. We're getting away with these. We're going to get something. And to be fair, Norwich scored quite a good goal, didn't they? I mean, there was no complaints about, about their goal. But did you feel like when Dennis went, it was just because? Sorry, well, let's go back to actually when he did go. So it wasn't the second yellow. It wasn't a yellow card, in my opinion, was it for you?
No. It was right in front of us. The ref had his card out before he put his foot there. It was,
it was a silly one. It's there to be won. It wasn't malice or anything like that. It was him trying to make amends. He knew that he'd messed up. We should have had a penalty earlier, shouldn't we, as well? Because he's definitely gone down inside the box. But then Norwich scored a pretty good goal. I couldn't really moan too much about the defending or goalkeeping, I don't think.
No.
I think we all thought it was over then, didn't we?
1,000,000%. I mean, what I would say is I think, just to summarise sort of my feelings on a couple of the performances and on the cards, I thought that Dennis was over exuberant and trying to make an impression, but Hyam was trying to block him off. I thought on the flip side of that, Dolan, I actually think Dolan looked very nervous. I think that the weight of he felt the weight of needing to put performance in. He probably knows Dennis, knows the manager. He's starting. He looked to me like somebody who was feeling that weight. And it was difficult to watch, actually, because he looked like he was overanalyzing everything he was doing. Cantwell tried a bit too hard against his former team and didn't look fully fit. I thought that on the flip side, though, the desperate to make an impression did work for us in the fact that Hashi was buzzing around everywhere. I mean, that's what he does anyway, but that then nearly won us a penalty. And I can't believe, Mike, you've nearly rounded this game up without mentioning
I haven't.
the game changer.
I haven't just yet. I've got it in the holster. It says right here. So you can say it. Come on, you say it.
No, Mike. I am not taking this moment from you. So number 19, on he comes. An innocuous substitution. Yeah. How do you think he played?
Okay, so let's be honest with Hedges. He's had a pretty poor season. He's turned into a squad player. I remember talking to you and Dan, actually, and I'd done a lot of stats on Hedges, and then he got himself injured last year. Was it last year? It was last year, wasn't it? And I actually said how important it was to the team because at the time, whenever he played and he played well, he was, we was getting the results. And when he didn't play, we wasn't. And there was actually stats to back that up. And then he gets injured and it all went to pot. And to be honest, this season, I think he's regressed into being a squad player. And if he does what he did this week, I'll be really happy. Because I think you can't have, we're not a team that can have loads and loads of people on the bench that are on ridiculous wages, of ridiculous ability, that are happy being on the bench. So you do need to have your squad fillers. And I think Hedges, if he can do what he did this week, where he comes on, gives us 15 minutes of performing really well, I'll be really happy. And I thought he did come on, and I think he did play well. I thought that he just offered something a little bit different, and he looked quite calm, could I say? Maybe.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Yeah, I thought he got really involved in the game. I thought he linked up with Ribeiro well. He was looking to put early crosses in, which is good because I think he's got a really good whip on him. But yeah, again, the overriding thing for me was you looked at the bench and you thought, there's different ways we can go here. There's different options. I don't feel this season like with plan A and then we're weakening the team that often. There was a spell when we had injuries where they then looked to the bench and it would be potentially weakening the starting 11, but you had to make some changes. I think now we've got different options rather than weaker ones at times. And I think Hedges came into that and played a really important role. So, yeah.
And that's what we need sometimes, isn't it? We need those players to come on and make a difference because there's no point in just having players come on just to maybe add a little bit of energy. You want them to come on and make a difference. And some of our subs did that. Ohashi came on and he looked energetic and, showed that we'd missed that kind of player. Hedges came on. It was nice to see Tronstad on. I thought Dennis was actually playing quite well. He was getting some good touches. He was just, like you say, a bit over exuberant. Just quickly to finish off the game, then the 2 goals. Did you have any arguments with their goals, with how they scored it or anything? I've looked back. There's no one I can really point the finger at. It just looked like it was a good goal, good finish.
Yeah, we hadn't quite adjusted a bit to the 10 men, and it was one of them that happened, I think.
And the calmness of our goal, was that out of nowhere?
Well, it was and it wasn't, because he nearly did that within about 3 seconds of coming on, didn't he? And I've seen Andy Weimann do that numerous times, and it's yet another sub goal. So I think we should start to say that it's not actually that unexpected anymore. That said, 97th minute, I think we had all kind of thought that it had passed us by this game.
Well, it's interesting you said that about us changing our views now of Rovers, because I've said it multiple times that Rovers of old and all of this about how we'd lose a game and stuff. Maybe we do need to change, especially me, change my thoughts on it, because one of the notes I made was, I just want the team to go into each game and we know what we're going to get from them, because at the moment it just seems like a lottery every single time. I think to myself, we're going to play this team and we might do quite well, and then we go and play rubbish. And then the next game, where it's a game where I think we might play poor, we play well. And I just never know what to get with us. It just seems like a complete mixture. I can go through the fixture list and I can say, yeah, we played well in that, rubbish in that, well in that, rubbish in that, rubbish in that. And I know that that's football, but I just never know what I'm going to get with us. And I'm not sure if that's exciting or it's doing my head in. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I think last week, Hedges was the worst thing since sliced bread. This week, he's come on and made a real impact in the game. We've seen Forshaw get called and then he goes and scores a great goal. Dolan 1 minute is a 10 out of 10. The next minute is a 6. Yeah. I think some of it's the nature of why these players are in the Championship. I think, people like Tyrese Dolan, for example, when he plays how he can play, if he played like that more often than not, he wouldn't be in the Championship. And what I do think we need to start looking at is when Cardball was playing at weekend and people were saying, oh, he's quite new to the Championship, give him a chance. And you could hear the conversations going, oh, he'll learn. And I thought, but he's got 4 years, 3 years on Dolan? And people just need to remember that. I think I felt a bit sorry for Dolan at weekend, though. He did look like somebody who looked under pressure, and it wasn't nice to see, because I've not seen him like that for a while.
And I know I'm one of the ones that gets at him, and it's not because I'm getting at him for any other reason than the fact that I just know he can do so much better, and I know what he can achieve. That's why I don't put the same pressure on the likes of Hedges, for example. Like, I know what Hedges is. At best, he's probably a good Championship player. At worst, he's probably a good League One player. But I know that Dolan, if it clicks with him and he can get it mentally right, he could easily be a Premier League player. What level in the Premier League is to be seen. But I think that's what it is. If I see a player that I just know he can do better, that's when I put him under pressure. Now, you saying about how he played, I've seen him play like that quite a few times over the last year, and I think that the likes of Brereton leaving and him saying he wanted to take on that role, and then obviously Schmodik's then leaving, and then I think he's probably thinking, well, I want to take on that role. It's just not happened for him, because I think he just needs to relax and play his own game, but he just needs to do the simple things. That's all I ask of him. Get the simple, and that's the whole game for me. This game was do the simple things right, and the game will take care of itself. And that's what happened with that 95th minute equaliser. We just did the simple things: keep hold of the ball, get it out wide, dink it over the back, let someone go get it. Yes, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work, but it's simple football. Having the likes of Dolan just go down blind alleys. I used to get annoyed with Kedra for it. All this talent, all this pace, and all he used to do is go down blind alleys and lose it. And yes, he scored a great free kick against QPR, but the kid did my head in. It's the same with Dolan. But that being said, we come out of it, we show great character, we get the 1-1. The question remains is about the referee's performance. Now, my argument, I know that you said that obviously the ref was against us at the end, and I think he was. But my argument was that the ref actually helped us more than he hindered us. And if he's got the decisions correct, we probably would have lost that 2-3-0. So my theory is we would have been down to 9 men after about the 85th minute. 67th minute, it says Dennis got his yellow. So Hein would have gone and Dennis would have probably gone. I think we would have been down to 9 men. Now, I know the game can change after the Hein red. I get that. But I think the ref helped us rather than hindered us in the end. What do you think?
I can see what you're saying. It didn't feel like that, I'll be honest. He completely lost control of the game for me. He was giving
he did at the end.
Random decisions. And the Dennis one bugs me. It forever bugs me, things like that. Not just because it's Rovers. You can't... for me, he prejudged that and he was almost wanting to right a wrong. And it frustrates the hell out of me when they do that. Did he watch something at half-time with the Hein one? Probably not, because I think he'd have sent Dennis off for the first one if he'd have done that. But he absolutely knew he'd made an error with that first Dennis one, because like I say, his card was out pretty much before Chris Henry hit the floor after doing 43 pirouettes. But yeah, it just felt like he was giving everything to them at one stage. But that's a very rose-tinted glasses whilst you're frustrated watching your team.
Yeah, it definitely felt like he wanted to give Norwich more at the end to get them the win, because he knew he'd messed up with the Hein one, and I think he obviously wanted to he didn't want to give us that penalty. But that to me was obviously in the area. Even his angle, I don't get what he saw there. I really don't.
I'll be honest, I was right. That's pretty much where I sit in the Blackburn. I'm right in line. And the way the players were coming across, I'd have given it if he'd have asked me in the stand. But I couldn't have confidently said where that tackle took place. And it wasn't like he was pulling a shirt that then continued into the box. So, I know Ohashi was really leaning, wasn't he, to get into the box. I wasn't convinced. I wasn't. I'd have given it because I wanted a penalty, but I wasn't convinced.
No, and it's all come out in the wash, as they say. You know, we've got the points. Whether we deserved it or not's another thing. And before I ask you for some 3-word reactions, I'll go through some of the Rovers fans' ones. So, Tommy's put the ref did all he could, but it wasn't enough. Andi, come on. Fantastic effort and performance levels from the lads. Not sure I agree with the performance levels. Deserved at least a point. Good to see Carter, Tronstad and Yuki all back. On to the next. Come on. We were shite. Ref was even worse. Let's be honest, we were crap today. Yes, the ref had one, but we got the point. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, most people tend to agree the performance wasn't there. We were poor. There was a few things that weren't great, but it was just fantastic to actually get the point in the end. But was there any 3-word reactions that was particularly good for you?
There's a lot about the referee suggesting all sorts, so we're not even going down that route. I think the two that kind of summed it up, though, there was Mark Atherton who said fight to the end, and then Adam Towski, work to do. And I think that's kind of how I felt coming away from the game. Yeah, we fight to the end, but there is a lot of work still to do. There's 11 games left and a lot of work. Yeah.
Definitely. And it's great to see that obviously we've now got a manager in that can probably put his stamp on things. But until then, we've got to face our old manager. We now go to Derby away. So let's just quickly discuss this game. So obviously, you know, they're 24th in the league. They're not doing the best.
Yeah.
Have you done any research on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously, you know, I used to have Hitch's bets. I like a bet. I like having a little look at the stats. So I look at, you know, the odds and the probability, Mike. So let's have a look at this game completely impartially. So the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 meetings between Blackburn Rovers and Derby have meant Derby have only won one of them. Derby have not won in 2025, including an FA Cup tie that they drew with Leyton Orient and lost on penalties. The last time Derby won was the 26th of December. They've not scored at home in 7 league games. Ryan Nyambe is 2 games away from being the championship record holder for the most outfield appearances without a goal. John Eustace took 10 games to win his first game at Rovers, despite him trying to claim the Stoke City game. So I had a look at the little betting odds, and Rovers are 3-1 outsiders to win this game. Now, I can't quite work out whether the bookies are going on the exact same basis that me and every other Rovers fan are, in that I can find no sense in that Derby have got any chance in this game. Therefore, we know they will go and win and Nyambe will score from 40 yards. But I don't think bookies usually work like that. So I am very intrigued if you can work out why they feel this is the one. But do bookies work on... I thought they worked on stats and hard facts rather than the fact that motivation's probably on their side a little bit.
Well, doesn't the initial line is based on stats and then it depends where the money's going? So that means that a lot of people are putting money on Derby to win.
Possibly, but it was the initial odds that I looked at. So, yeah. I mean, let's be honest.
Derby people put comments down below and see why you think that the odds are how they are.
I mean, Derby are having an absolute shocker. They are very, very much rooted to the bottom of the league without Eustace even getting involved. I think they've got some players coming back this week. He's talking about some good omens and they've got some players back. I've watched their team and they're very poor. I think he's going to struggle to do what he did at Rovers. You've got to remember Rovers were 6-7 points off the relegation when he came in, and we ended up scraping it on the last game of the season. We had Sammy Smodics. I think we had a squad that's far better than Derby's is now. But I can't shake this horrible niggly feeling that it will be the most Rovers thing to do. Yes.
It'd be so frustrating if it does happen, because, like you say, I mean, it's so predictable. It's so predictable, but I hope that there's a little bit of bite from our players, a little bit of anger maybe, that they find that extra 10, 15, 20% of energy that when they're tired, that Ismae gets them riled up and so on, because he's probably going to want to get one over it. The manager to say, look, I'm here now and I'm better than you ever was, kind of thing. Ego might come into it. I don't know. It's going to be. I've got a feeling it's going to be a tasty one.
100%. I think Rovers have obviously sold their allocation out quite quickly. Be very interesting to see who Eustace tries to play on in terms of positionally. He obviously knows our players inside out, the way he sets up, because obviously he's almost now looking at what he knew our weaknesses were and how to try and expose them. Will he stick crosses in on pairs, for example? Who knows? I think the atmosphere could be pretty tasty, but what I'm desperately hoping, obviously I want us to win, but what I'm desperately hoping is that we are the Rovers that we've just been talking about. We are a different Rovers, and we are a Rovers that go, and I'd like to see us, I know it's not necessarily our game, but I'd like to see us take control of possession, because what I want Derby to do, like we talked about in the game last week, when we were saying about what you don't want to do when a team is really low on confidence is give them any glimmer of hope. You need to make them step onto the pitch and everything they've built up in their head. And no, so this game it'll be, and Eustace knows how to play against them. And this is the one, lads. You need them to, within 5-10 minutes, to be going, it's the same old, actually. And you want the fans to be doing the same, fans to be getting at them, fans to be groaning, the passes going astray. And the best way to do that is get hold of the ball. I don't think I've ever seen a better example of that than when we went under Graham Souness to Celtic Park, and there was this big battle of Britain, and they were absolutely up for the game, and we didn't give them a kick for about 40 minutes, and the ground was just silent. Now, I don't think we'll be doing that. I don't think we've quite got two guys in the middle of the park, but I would like to see us just take control of the game for the first 10 minutes and just let them know, whether that's through intent going forward or whether that's through just real controlled possession, say, listen, lads, you know what's going to happen and we know what's going to happen, and just remind them of that there's levels to this game. But we shall see.
Yeah, and it's good that we haven't got that midweek game. They've got a little bit extra to be able to get themselves ready. The injured players have a chance to come in and sort themselves out, making sure that, we're ready with that. It's going to be interesting to see the starting lineup, actually, because, we have had, Hashi was a starter, Tronstad's a starter, Carter's a starter, so, out of them three, you're probably going to see Carter starting. I'm not sure we'd see Hashi, but there is potential to see Tronstad next to Travis. I think it's going to be really interesting, but I think there's a lot going for us in this game, but there's also just the whole, like you say, just Rovers doing Rovers things and probably losing this one, because it's just the way that football goes. But to have these injured players come back, to have a week to give Ismae a chance to get them ready, the fact that Derby are playing poorly, it does give us this opportunity now to really go and get a result. And I really hope we do, because I don't know why, this one will just be really, really painful. I mean, we've been to old managers before. We've had other players score old players score against us and stuff. But this one just has a feeling that if we don't go there and we get, I want a solid result, a really solid performance and solid result. If we don't get that, I'm going to be really disappointed.
I also think we've got to remember we've got 11 games left now. We've just dropped out of the top 6. And it's very condensed. I think Coventry's fixtures have fallen quite nicely for the next couple of games, and then they tail off. They're obviously on a cracking run of form. West Brom have just gone and got a good result at Leeds. You've got Bristol City playing midweek. We need to. It's almost a sign of intent, isn't it? When the new manager comes in, we really need it to start really well, don't we? Otherwise, it could peter out for the season quite quickly. So going to Derby and not getting a result would probably signal that the latter is more likely. But I have faith. I think we are a new Rovers. I think I've looked at how Ismae lines most of his teams up. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I think you're right. I think Carter plays. If Hyam isn't suspended, it'll be the same back 4. I think it'll be Tronstad and Travis. I've looked at what he likes, and he does like pace out wide. So Dennis is obviously going to be suspended. It could well be Cardboard again, but I can't see Cantwell playing. I think he's going to go Andi Weimann, and he does seem to always have a big man up front. So Ohashi, I don't know how he fits into this. I really don't. He wasn't going to take Gay off, was he, the other day? So
I think he can. I can see Ohashi dropping into that number 10 role eventually.
May well be. Yeah. And I think he can play that role.
And who's your right winger?
Me personally, I would give Dolan another pop, but I don't know. I think it would have been Dennis. I think he would have started Dennis. Obviously, he's not got that luxury, so we could well see. He tends to play the wingers on their correct side, so that would mean Cardboard would be on the right and Hedges on the left, perhaps. But I think he'll go with Dolan. I think he'll go Dolan. I think he'll go Cardboard on the left and go at them.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I don't think we're going to see true Ismae ball for the next 2 or 3 games. Like we said, we've got that international break coming up, which he's going to get his chance to work at his magic with. And I think sometimes it's good just to let the players play how they know to play and how they have been playing. So then it gives him an opportunity to see what he needs to do himself. You don't want it to be like an Almarin at Man United where he comes in, tries to change too much and it goes wrong. Like you say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. We probably need to play an element of the football that we've played under Eustace for a good few games yet before we see any difference. What's your predictions then for this game? Then, do you think it is? Do you think it is one that we're going to go and win? No, you got a bad feeling.
I just can't shake this feeling of. The other one is Mike. I'm going to be honest. My nephew is up at university in Newcastle, and he's had a season ticket for he's been really watching Rovers for the last 10 years. And every time he seems to go to a game, things don't go that well. And I got him a ticket, so probably my fault.
So it's on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be honest, I've got a good feeling. I know that Rovers do Rovers things, but I think we've turned the corner this season. I really do. I think that the fact that we can get a point this weekend where I really don't believe that
100%.
We deserved it at all. I know that there's a lot of people saying, yes, we did. I really don't think we did. I think there's been other games where, like the West Brom game, where I didn't expect anything and we get something. I think there's been games where we've just shown character. Yes, okay, there's been the Swansea game and the QPR game where we just didn't seem to be at the races. But I've got a feeling. We're going to be okay, Mark. I've got a feeling we're going to be okay.
I like that. And I think this is... I'm going to go as far as saying this game will dictate whether we actually have a chance of the playoffs, whether we've got something to fight for till the end of the season, or whether we don't. Because I think if you don't go to Derby when you've just dropped out of the playoffs and you're not fully motivated, fully on it, and get a result, you're not going to get in the playoffs. And there's too many other teams that are too eager to pick up on anybody's mistakes, really. And I need to see the players, and I've seen it plenty of times this season, West Brom, like you've mentioned, like at weekend. I've seen the players a number of times now that should give us enough confidence that they've got it in them to do what's needed, and you can't question their character. So, yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, me too. I think we're going to do it. But people put their comments down below. What do you think the score's going to be? How do you think we're going to do? How do you think we're going to play? Is the Rovers curse real? When it comes to old people coming to bite us in the arse? But yeah, put your comments down below. But let's move on now to obviously the biggest topic, and that is the managerial appointments. Apparently not on much money, and the contract's not long, according to some people. But yeah, we got our man. What's the feeling? You said about the feeling around the stadium. What's the feeling now? Is it people just getting on with life?
I think so. I think he's very much, like I said before, I think he's very much of a level playing field, and people are just waiting to see. You show us what you've got. I don't think there's too many with preconceived ideas, because you look out there and the Barnsley fans adore him. The Watford fans don't particularly like him. The West Brom fans are really mixed on him. They talk about him being really direct at Barnsley. Then at Watford, he tried to switch his style. So, yeah, I don't think people can confidently say they know what to expect. I mean, we did quite a bit on him last week, didn't we? Where we were saying, he's got championship experience. He's had good championship experiences. He's had some negative ones, but not horrific. I think, the story behind some of them, he left West Brom in a very similar position to what Eustace just left us in. When you look back at it, they were fifth in the league on the last game, and then they dropped to sixth, I think, because the team, I think it might have been Middlesbrough, got a result or something when I looked into it the day that he got sacked. But West Brom had these visions of grandeur that they come down despite shipping all their players out and would storm the league. Well, they're now apparently having a really good season, and yet they're where they were under him before. So he's actually got quite decent experience. I think it's a really awkward situation for a manager to come into. But I think I'm pretty much with the majority, and I'm happy to sit back and judge him on what I see at Rovers. I don't think I've got any preconceived ideas. And I don't think there was, for all the joking of the outstanding candidate from the Owen Coyle days, there wasn't one. I think you could have picked holes in whoever you'd appointed. If you'd have appointed Steve Cooper, I think you could have said, oh, great manager, blah, blah, blah. But his last couple of runs haven't been that great, and I don't particularly like him. I think if you'd have gone and got Russell Martin, people would have said, well, what a good manager he is. Well, me and you would have been wanting to kick him in the peanuts, because we both find his football absolutely horrific, and find him really arrogant. But Dyche would have split the fan base right down the middle. Edwards, we talked about, he's done this job before, but then in the long run, he's been poor. Wagner was the seemingly the direct, opposition to him, and he was having a shocker at Watford, wasn't he? So I don't think there was anybody that you can say. It's not like we've missed an opportunity in terms of we should have got him. That's who we should have got. Yeah.
No. I mean, Duncan Slater said, what is your general vibe about Vale, and can he make us competitive next season? I think it's really difficult to know, because at the end of the day, we're a mid-table championship side that we're hoping pushes forward, but equally we can just be dragged down like a lot of other championship clubs. We've got owners that don't seem to want to put their money in their pocket at the moment for various reasons. So it's really difficult to know what the manager's got to work with. Now, we've got a squad at the moment that has been cobbled together between loans, frees and low fee signings. And And they seem to be doing really well, like your Ohashes, your Gargpos. They seem very exciting, your Gaye's. So from a signings point of view, we're not exactly ripping up trees, but it seems to be working. Now, can he work under those kind of restraints if they continue? If he can, brilliant. Yeah, I think we can be competitive next season. I've still got faith that the coffers will open at some point and the Venkis will throw some money. I mean, there's talk of Adam Wharton going to Real Madrid, so that's going to be a nice, hefty pay packet for us, hopefully, to go with the other pay packets that we've had that haven't been spent. So I think my general vibe about him is I'm just as happy as anyone else would have been signed, really, because I wasn't a massive fan of when Eustace was appointed, and that worked out well.
Nope.
I wasn't a massive fan of Mowbray, and that worked out well. There's been plenty of managers in the past. Interestingly, we discussed about who our last favourite manager was that was appointed from day one, and I think a lot of people go very, very far back, because when you're a Championship side, it's not like you've got a load of managers knocking at the door that are exciting that you think, do you know what, that's a brilliant signing for us. It just doesn't work like that. But from what I've seen around social media, yeah, there's some people that are just negative, but there's a lot of people that just like being negative on social media. I think the general vibe for me is that people are quite happy, quote unquote happy. Is it an exciting appointment? Only time will tell. What do you think he needs to be competitive next year? Do you think that it's on him, or do you think there's a lot more to it than just what he does?
There is a lot more to it, but I think the recruitment, like you've said, seems to have been pretty decent. I flip-flopping a little bit about how the season needs to end for him, because this is different to Eustace. Eustace had one objective, didn't he? He had to keep us up or he was a failure. And then I was happy to judge him again. I feel a bit sorry for Ismae in some senses, because he's coming in and he just needs to not mess it up. But it's deeper than that. When we know the truth is not that. Would we have got in the playoffs under Eustace? I think if you did a survey, the fans would be pretty split on that. So, yeah, I think he's come into a real good opportunity. And if he can capitalise on that and get us in the playoffs, then he goes into next season with a really high stock. If it's anything less, I think the fans will be on the fence with him. And what I do think will tip it is the people like Ohashi. If he's seemingly sticking with, let's say, a big man in Gay and he's not performing, and the likes of Ohashi, the fans have seen, have got something, are not getting a look in, and Cantwell's not getting a game, and his murmurings are he's not happy because he's not playing to his style, and those sorts of things start to happen, then I think the fans will very quickly become uneasy about it. But ultimately...
Well, I've got a question for you based on that then, that Ross Gibson's actually asked, and I'll give you a minute to think while I go through mine. So he said, with all the injured players returning, what would your starting 11 be if everyone was fit? So this is actually an interesting one, because eventually Val's going to have this team to pick from. Yeah. Now, mine, I've literally just had a quick look now. So my goalkeeper would be Toth, just to put a spanner in the works there. I think Hyman Carter are my two centre-backs. As much as Danny Bart's been an absolute rock, I think them two playing together as a unit, when they're firing, I think are great. I think Britton's your obvious right back. Yeah. Who's your left back? Because I've got Beck. I was close between the two, but I need to see a little bit more from Ribeiro. But I feel like Beck's gone, so we're not in sync there. Centre midfields, I've gone Trav and Tronstad.
Yeah,
it's an obvious one. Okay, who's your left winger?
Beck.
Oh, so I've got Gagpo. Who's your right winger?
I like Cogbo, but I think the option of Beck on that left-hand side, I like when he played there against Leeds. I like when he's played there a few times. I think he gives you the defensive structure as well, which we need. And I'm obviously thinking about these playoff games here against some good teams. That's where my team is. Going to the Dingle Dome, Beck and Ribeiro on that left-hand side, I think will be really strong. And Cardboard coming on just to tear the game up in the 60th minute. Right wing, I think I've leaned to Dolan.
So I've gone with Dennis.
I can see that. That's who I was toying.
I've gone with Dennis because we haven't seen a lot of him. We've done our research based on when we signed him. We've tried to see all the highlight reels we can. And he just looks like he would give that quality. And the little glimpses I've seen, he's shown some quality. Yeah, he was a silly boy at the weekend. But I think that was just energy. So mine's Dennis. Yours is Dolan. Who's your number 9 and number 10?
Gay and Cantwell.
I've gone Gay and Ohashi.
Mike, you've gone very attacking here at the Dingle Dome.
But everyone, put your comments down below. Ross, if you're listening, put yours down below. You're the one that asked the question. We want to know what you think. So, yeah, we've got a few question marks there. It tends to be more.
I'd like to go with the team you've got, and I'd like to see it. But I think if I was actually managing the team, I'd go a little bit more pragmatic, and then 60 minutes I'd turn into your team. That's basically what I'll be doing. Yeah.
So I'm an all or nothing kind of guy.
Well, I like that. That's. I'll be honest. If I was going to watch a game, I want to see your team. That's the team I want to see start.
Was it our idealist used to say the aim of football is to score one more than the opposition?
Well, I mean, he's not wrong. Let's go.
6-5 every game, 7-5, yeah.
I'll tell you what, if we start getting to a position where we're out of the playoffs, then crack on. Let's go for it. So let's have some fun.
Exactly. So yeah, put your comments down below what your thoughts are. Another one, we may as well bring this one up. Adam saw Hedges was brilliant when he came on. Is there a player in there somewhere? So we've already had a little discussion about him. I said earlier that his ceiling is being a good championship player, starter, and his floor is probably League One. Obviously, that's very broad. Where are you lying with Hedges now? What do you think his future is with us?
I think he's got a real role as a squad player. I think there's times where I would start Hedges away from home, and there's times where, but ironically for me right now, Beck sort of pinches that spot from him. But he's, in terms of permanent members of the squad, he's the player that you play for the first 60 minutes away from home at tough grounds for me, and then he's got to come and make an impact from the rest of the times. That's where I see him. I don't think I think I've seen enough of him now to think I don't want to be going into a season with him as our main left winger or right winger.
No, I think he's definitely turned into a depth player for us. He's someone that can come off when the bench and affect games, be something different, add a little bit of depth when it comes to like EFL Cup games, things like that, FA Cup. The kind of player that can start there. I think it is. Interestingly, I've just read a question from Tim DYO, who agrees with you. Is Gagbo a better starter for Blackburn or a bigger threat when he comes off the bench? If the latter, who plays ahead of him? So I think he's getting that he's a bigger threat off the bench there. But last one for the mailbag, Gareth Moores. If we finish outside the playoffs, would it still be thought of as a very good season, although it will be a chance missed? I think it is a chance missed. We've discussed this plenty of times, and this is why we get frustrated with the Venkies, that we come into January, we're looking sharp, we're looking like we need the bodies, and it doesn't happen. And if anything, sometimes we look weaker the season after. I think all things considered, if we finish mid-table with a sniff of playoffs with a few games to go, I think that's going to be considered a good season. I mean, what does success look like? How do you define it for Rovers? I think when you've absolutely butchered the squad as many times as we've done and have to rebuild, to not be in a relegation fight has to be considered a success. What about you?
Yeah, I think obviously, but the longer the season's going on, the more it's going to be a failure. I think had Eustace stayed in charge all season, the fingers would only have been pointed at the board and the owners. I think they would have basically said, well, if he'd have backed Eustace, he'd have got us in the playoffs. I think there's a little bit more room now that if we don't get in there, some people will say it's Ismael's fault. Some will say it's because they didn't back Eustace. But I think, what are we now? A quarter of the season left. Still a long time when you think about it. But I think it would now be seen as a chance missed. That said, it would be an incredible achievement, and I stand by that. I'll be getting the playoffs for the first 3 quarters of the season, but even this last quarter, from where we are right now, was still no right for Blackburn Rovers as they are right now to be getting in the playoffs.
No.
But I think I started the season with, I don't really know what the season's going to look like. I got to Christmas and I thought, oh, this is quite nice. I'm quite happy to see it go on with the ride. Then the next sort of quarter of the season, I was very much, right, now we're in with a chance. And where I am right now is, well, the team's got the grit, they've got the determination, they've got a little bit of quality. Now I want to see us do this. This has to be the time. It feels like one of them where you're as close as you've been in a long, long time. Don't waste it. I don't think they will waste it. I think if they don't get over the line, it won't be for a lack of will, of effort, but it will still feel like we've missed an opportunity. But I think the fingers should be pointed, elsewhere. They certainly should be pointed at the players. Even if somebody goes and does a Ryan Hedges against Preston in the last minute, it shouldn't be them getting the pelters.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, we're in March now. We're still in with a fight. We put some stats out there to show that, if you look at some of the other seasons where we dropped off, where we are now is very good. And especially considering, like we've said before, there's not many players in our side that, look like absolute stars. That's not disrespectful towards them. They're a very solid champion. There's some very solid championship players in our team, but we've always had that star that you look at and think, yeah, he's destined for bigger things. And we haven't necessarily had that. And to have this squad now that is a sum of all parts and to be where we are, and, I don't feel like we've had that slump as, I don't want to say it because we're going to go into one now, so I'm not going to say it. But now, hopefully we've now got a manager that can solidify us, and then we get some money to actually, push forward now. But yeah, success-wise, I think you're right. I think it'll be disappointing if we're not in shout with playoffs come the last couple of game days. But yeah, we'll wait and see. But no, thank you everyone for those questions. We tend to try and get questions out of the comments. There's a lot of stuff that people ask us that we was always going to cover earlier in the podcast with match reviews, previews, and so on. But one thing we are starting to put out a little bit more is question of the week. It was quite successful when we did it a few months ago. Because of everything going on, we never really had the opportunity to go through it because we was talking so much about other things, but now we can have a bit of fun and put it out there. So this one this week was, as Rovers looked set to a point, and obviously did, Ismae, who's the last manager that we appointed that you loved from day one? So this is going back to the fact that, it's very rare that you'll get a manager where you just love him straight away. You're like, brilliant. So some of the ones that we've seen here. So someone said Eustace. And that's one out of left field. Kenny Dalglish, then that's an obvious one, but that was a long time ago. Have you not liked any managers we've appointed since then from day one? Big Sam. I remember when Big Sam came in, I wasn't that happy. I don't know why. I just felt like his brand of football wasn't going to suit us. And as much as I grew into the love, I didn't like him from day one.
No, as much as I would have had Big Sam this time around. I still look back at Big Sam getting sacked, and I don't think that was the error. Because his football, I remember going to a Sunderland home, we won 1-0, and the mood on the way home was as if you'd been absolutely hammered. It was some dreadful football. And Allardyce, for me, though, I know what that person means, because under Ince, we were only going in one direction. And I could only see Sam Allardyce as the person to get us out of it. So I wouldn't say I was happy with him. I felt like it was a necessary evil.
With some other names here, Gary Bowyer, JDT a couple of times. Anthony Seabass has put not Owen Coyle. Gary Bowyer. But obviously, me and you have also commented on this. So you would put last ones I was happy from the outset with Thomason and Lambert. But the last one I wanted and we got was Hughes. And I agreed with you on that, because I remember that we were meant to get him or Ian Dowie. And I remember just not wanting Ian Dowie. And I was on holiday with my missus, and it was back when you got the paper the day after. So And we were relatively big fry then, Rovers, you know.
God,
so we was in the national
mad,
paper.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. But I had to keep phoning my mum off a payphone to ask her what the latest was. And the missus was getting irritated with me, because she thought, we're on holiday, what are you doing? And it's like, I just need to. And then when I just remember calling my mum saying, we've got Hughes. Are you happy? And I said, I'm delighted. And I think it was mainly because I didn't want Dowie, but it was a cracking appointment. He'd had a bit of history with the club. He'd done really well, you know, managing Wales. It was a big appointment, that was.
Oh, I was very excited. And I think that's kind of what I've gone off in terms of this, where I don't like a manager I go, yeah, that's all right. I kind of want to feel like there's a new era starting, that it's fresh optimism. That's why I said JDT. I felt like, we brought Broughton in. We've gone JDT. I felt like the whole thing I was happy about. I was happy to go in a new, fresh direction. But the
felt
Lambert
like a reset
one,
button had been hit with JDT, didn't it?
Yeah, we had a new project. Remember those days? But yeah, the Lambert one was, I felt like we'd kind of become a bit too nice. It felt like under Boyer, and like we were never going to capitalise on certain games, and like we just sort of bumbled through some games, and you might be losing 1-0 and you could never turn it around, and we weren't quite getting the most out of the players we had. And then I always remember there was a spell under Boyer where we were scoring loads of goals but conceding, so then he got to fix that, and then you look, no, you'd never score if you played till Christmas. And he couldn't quite get the balance right ever. And I looked at Lambert, and I've seen, obviously, the things he'd done at Norwich and Wycombe before that. He'd done, Villa, whatever. But I thought, that's the man. That is the man. He can do this. He can get us over the line. He can turn this team of quality players and give them that know-how. And it didn't quite work. But yeah, so I was happy with him from the outset.
I think I was quite happy with Lambert. I mean, JDT, I remember, obviously, we were doing content then, and I remember us talking, and we were chuffed with it. But I don't think anything will get that. Like Souness, Andy's mentioned Souness. Souness was another one I was really chuffed about, because I just felt like there were big names that had a bit of history as well at management. You know, and they've been successful in their roles. Lambert was close to that, but everyone else since, I don't know, they just felt very meh.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at the minute, I suppose. But we've put the new question of the week out, Mike. I don't know if you want to give initial thoughts or not, but this time the question of the week is, if you could have a signed match-worn shirt from any player in Rovers history, which one would it be?
It was an obvious one for me, and you know I love big, bold goalkeepers, so it would be a nice Brad Friedel one. Any of them really? Anyone? I mean, I know we lost, but the one where he scored the goal, that'll be a good one to have. That'll be a good one to have. What
to
about you?
Mike, keep him. I mean, it should be Shearer by right, shouldn't it? It'd be Matt Jansen. I can't get away. Everyone knows my love for Matt Jansen. He's my one true love.
I'll tell you what. You get the Matt Jansen Worthington Cup one, final one, where he scored. I'll get the Friedel one, where he got man of the match. Two great performances from two great players from our heroes. I mean, someone's got to make that happen for us, surely.
Well, I'll tell you what, they will make one aging man very happy. We'll go here. Just here, I'd give it a little stroke every night before I got to bed. Yeah. Love Matt Jansen.
Yeah, if for the podcast listeners that says about him stroking it before he goes to bed, he meant the shirt.
Of course I meant the shirt. Come on. Matt Jansen's not actually here. Jeez, come on. Grow up. But yeah, if anyone can make that happen, well, I don't know what we could do, Mike. We can't offer an awful lot, but they can come and sit in my chair for a couple of weeks. That's not a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd get rid of all this memorabilia I've got behind me and just have the shirt right in the middle.
Imagine Mrs. Beattie after you've done it all. Yeah, I'm taking it all down. Brad's there. This is now Brad's room.
She was the one that told me to sort my room out. She watches the videos, and she obviously comments on nothing to do with football. She's like, that looks a mess. You got to sort that out. What have you done there? And so then she was the one that actually made me go and sort it all out. So there's a lot of this stuff behind. She just said, like, let's just go get it done because it's doing my head in, knowing that people are seeing into our house and seeing the absolute mess that you work in.
Yeah, you see, now I'm getting grief and people are telling me you need to get your shirts framed like Mike. I'm like, all right, calm down.
No, just go to the range, mate. These things here, just the range. Easy.
There we go. The Blackburn End Podcast, sponsored by the range.
There we go. But no, it's question of the week's out. Make sure you comment on stuff like that. Make sure you comment on the videos down below. We look at all the comments because this is where we pull a lot of our questions, and we love interacting with everyone because at the end of the day, you're fans, we're your fans. We do this for therapy sessions. We celebrate together. We cry together. And all the comments, positive, negative, any feedback, any questions, we read it all. So make sure you do. But Mark, it's been a good one. And hopefully next week it's going to be even more positive.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to share their positivity, I will be at Derby. I will be in the Harvester before the game. I am driving, so it'll not be an alcoholic beverage. But yes, I am taking... I've just realised that I am taking 3 children. One of them is 18, so we don't really count. I'm taking 2 nephews and my daughter. But yeah, I've not got any inflatable snakes yet. I don't know how I feel about that, if I'm being honest. Just quickly, very, very briefly touching on that. I think the players have a big love for Eustace, and if we start singing about him and having a pop, I don't know how the players will take that. And Eustace in general, I think we've talked a lot about him, and there are things I'm unhappy with. And it is a little bit like if someone disrespects your family and they decide to leave, they're dead to you. But I have a lot of sympathy with him, and I think he's made some errors in the way he's handled it. But ultimately, I think he wanted the same things that we wanted. So I can't be too cross at him. That said, I hope he has a thoroughly miserable Saturday next week.
I hope he does too. I hope we win. My under-10s team that I manage, we've made the County Cup semi-final, and we play an absolute horrible team on Saturday. I'm hoping for a very positive football weekend. Obviously, I'll keep people... I'll let people know how my weekend went at the next podcast. But yeah, Mark, it's going to be positive next week, isn't it? We're going to be positive. Everything's going to be good. We're going to have got those
100%.
3 points, and we're going to be on to the next one, aren't we?
We'll be back in the playoffs. We'll have smashed Derby. We will not have succumbed to the Rovers of old. I will have £30 in my bank from the £10 I put on Rovers, and all's well in the world. Yeah, job done.
Exactly. Well, we appreciate everyone listening. The views are going up, the downloads are going up. So keep sharing, keep doing all the good stuff. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all the feedback that you give us. Like I said, if you've got anything that you want to talk about in today's pod, just stick it down below in the comments. Make sure you comment on our X posts. But obviously the YouTube stuff's really where we dig down as well. And our email address is still theblackburnend@gmail.com. And let's hope that next week we're all talking about a nice Rovers win against our old manager. But until then, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.